Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's Hinckley Forum. My name is William. I'm a student here at the Hinckley. The Hinckley Institute of Politics is a nonpartisan institute at the University of Utah. The Hinckley provides an array of transformative experiences for students through internships, forums, and classes. Hinckley forums seek to foster public discourse and civil debate on the most current and pressing issues, bringing in local, national, and international thought leaders. Today's forum is presented as part of the University of Utah Societal Impact Seminar Series. We want to thank the Kem C. Gardner Policy Institute for their partnership on this event. Now, we are excited to introduce today's Societal Impact Scholar, Tim Shriver. At this polarized moment in U.S. politics, the University of Utah and Project Unite have joined forces to make political and public discourse more productive. Unite was founded in 2018 by CEO Tim Shriver in an effort to help ease divisions, prevent violence, and solve problems. In 2021, in partnership with the Hinckley Institute, the nonprofit developed the Dignity Index, an 8-point scale that measures how people talk to each other when they disagree, ranging from 1, which shows total contempt for the other side, to 8, which shows dignity to everyone, no matter what. Tim Shriver is married, a father of 5, the chairman of Special Olympics International, co-creator of the Dignity Index, and co-founder of Unite. Tim began his career as an educator and co-founded and currently chairs the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. He earned his undergraduate degree from Yale, a master's degree from Catholic University, and a doctorate in education from the University of Connecticut. He has produced 6 films, is the author of the New York Times bestseller Fully Alive, Discovering What Matters Most, and co-editor of The Call to Unite, Voices of Hope and Awakening. Please join me in welcoming our guest.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I would like to add to my, shorten my resume, but add to it that I'm also the holder of an honorary doctorate from the University of Utah. Yeah. And I actually know how to do the thing. That's a learned skill. That's another story. Thanks everybody for coming today. Thanks to the Kem C. Gardner Center. Thanks to Natalie for helping make all this possible. Thanks to all of you for taking some time out of your day. I was told everybody would much prefer to be out sunbathing today than sitting in here, so those of you have shown some degree of courage and self-sacrifice to join us in a dark room on a bright sunny day in the early days of spring, so I'm grateful for that. I'd like to start with a quick question. What are the majors in the room? Content, political science, like literally, what are you majoring in? I'd love to hear everybody's. Yeah? Political and international studies, what else? Yeah. Anyone else? Same? Sociology. Yeah, but that's a BYU infiltrator. Sorry. Yes, you're right. Thank you, Alexa. Thank you. What other majors in the room? Economics.
Environment, sustainability.
Uh-huh.
Bioinformatics.
Bioinformatics. I wonder if we're going to have anything to say to that, but I hope so. I hope so. What else?
History.
History? Great.
Mechanical engineering.
Nice. Nice.
Administration.
Great.
Psychology.
Psychology. How about the old people? Anybody who actually made it to graduation want to share what their degree is in or what they majored in college? What else? Anything you didn't hear?
Social psychology.
Social psych. You need to take this podium. Go ahead. What's that? Computer information systems. Wow, fascinating.
Legal studies.
Nice. Does that give you
Not JD.
right?
It's just a master's degree.
Just a master's degree. It's still pretty cool. What else do we have in the room in terms of majors?
I got one of my majors in health policy.
In health policy. From? University of Utah, yeah. What else? What else do we got? Yeah. Finance. Good for you. Congratulations. We're missing anything?
Foreign service.
Foreign service. I was just talking to Tom, my colleague, which we'll get to in a minute. We are told that some of the best people at managing relationships are people who have been in the foreign service because they have, I guess intuitively or by training. So you might be called upon to teach part of this brief lecture. The reason I wanted to ask this question is because I want to have us all a little bit in the conversation about how what we're going to talk about today applies across the board. It may sound like what I'm going to talk about is politics, and it is. I'm going to talk a little bit about politics. We're going to share some ideas about politics. Or it may sound like what we're talking about is social psychology, and it is. But I hope what you'll hear, and if you don't hear that you'll ask about, is how this matters in all these various disciplines. How does it matter in finance and engineering and political science and international studies and law and all these other areas? Because the claim here is not that we have just a new skill or that we just have a new way of doing public life, but we have a new patriotism. And every major in the room has a question involved in it. Do you, or are you, or will you be patriotic or not? Will you opt out of that? And most people, I shouldn't say, I don't have great data on this, but I think we have pretty good data. Most people, let's say under 30, are uncomfortable with the idea of being patriotic. So the claim we're going to have to play out today, I'm going to assume, is meeting some skepticism in the room. Like, I'm guessing people did not wake up this morning going, oh, I just can't wait to talk about patriotism. I'm guessing a lot of people would have said, oh, if I knew it was about patriotism, I wouldn't even go. And I'm not interested in that. So the claim here is not that we have a new social psychology or a new politics, but we have a new patriotism. I want you to push back if you don't hear evidence to support that claim. Okay? So we're going to start with who we consider in the Dignity Index world, in the Unite world, in a way our most noted prophet. You see here Dr. King, and we could, I think anyone would know this, but we could put 100 different quotes up here from Dr. King. But maybe, Annalise, I'll ask you, would you mind reading this out loud?
Sure. I'm convinced that men hate each other because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. And they don't know each other because they don't communicate with each other. And they don't communicate with each other because they are separated from each other.
So here's the first question. How many people agree that people hate each other because of their fear of each other? You think that's true? Other reasons why people hate each other, not fear? Yeah.
Just not understanding each other.
Not understanding, yeah. Other reasons why people hate each other? Word not up here is anger. Word not up here is because there's public policy that separates them from each other. Word not up here is because their candidates for office are different from each other. Dr. King, in the midst of one of the most hemorrhaging political moments in the history of the country, in which the full force of the law on both sides of the issue were in play to the point of violence, in which uniformed officers of the United States military and law enforcement were at odds with members of the United States citizenry, locates the problem in fear. It's fascinating to us, fascinating to me. Almost no one says, I really can't stand that person because I'm afraid. I have, in my life, never heard anyone say that. I'm furious at him because I'm afraid of him. Never in my life heard it. That's where Dr. King locates today's problem. I refer to him prophetically, not because he predicted the future, but because he saw deeply into the present moment of his time, which is still relevant to the present moment of our time. So this issue of separation, lack of communication, I learned firsthand, mostly through the Special Olympics movement. The Special Olympics movement, for those of you that don't know, is an organization dedicated to allowing people with intellectual and developmental disabilities to live full and meaningful lives and be treated with dignity. That's the whole purpose. It looks like a soccer game or a track meet, but the goal of the Special Olympics movement, the vision of the Special Olympics movement, is to have people see one another with dignity. Right? So how do we do this? You say, instead of seeing you as a certain age, wearing certain clothes, with a certain major, I'm going to see you as a soccer player, and me too. So let's go play soccer. Let's go kick the ball, right? The minute you shift the identity from race, culture, SES, background, political persuasion, to athlete, you've switched the person's way of seeing the other person, even if it's just a little glimpse into a different way of seeing. So what we try to do in the Special Olympics movement is get those of us who don't have intellectual disabilities to stop seeing through a distorted lens. Stop seeing disability, stop seeing stupid, stop seeing hopeless, stop seeing sick, stop seeing valueless, stop seeing sad, stop seeing worthless. I use all these words with pain because they're all used and they're all, almost all of them, I'm not going to put anybody's thoughts to bear here, but almost all of them have been held by one or more of us at many different times. I'm so scared. Oh, thank God that didn't happen to me. What are you saying about someone? Right? There but for the grace of God go I. Otherwise, if it weren't for God's grace, I'd be... What are we saying about each other when we say that kind of stuff? Right? So the purpose of the Special Olympics movement is to reveal the distortions of our lens. In other words, to reveal to ourselves, those of us cheering on the sidelines, giving $20, lining the track, helping to coach the athlete, those of us to reveal the distortions of our own way of seeing. So here's just one scene from the Special Olympics movement, and I'll just tell the story quickly. This is opening ceremony, so this is like a big games. There'll be hundreds of little events in Utah, but this is a big games, World Games. President Clinton in 1995 comes to the games, and he's giving his speech at this moment. Down in the field, there's 6,000 Special Olympics athletes from countries all over the world. They've all got single-use cameras. You remember what do you know what a camera is? Yeah. Okay. So you remember. And the athletes on the field have the cameras, but the president is at the top row because the Secret Service wouldn't let him come down because the security they didn't mag everybody. So he's up at the top behind a screen, and the athletes are trying to watch him. And one of the photographers sees a group of athletes over here, and they've all got their cameras, aimed to the top row. And they're all holding up their cameras like this, and the photographer looks more closely, and he sees that they all have the camera backwards. The lens is pointing on their nose. So he realizes they've never used a camera before, and he goes over to say, you're trying to get a picture, and he doesn't know if they speak English. You're trying to get a picture of the president. You have to turn the camera around, push the button. And the athlete says, oh, thank you. But if you look through the viewfinder backwards, it works like binoculars, and you can see the president perfectly clearly at the top of the stadium. Now, I want to share that story just quickly because I hope, when I told the story, you were thinking they don't know how to use a camera. Because that's what I was thinking when I first heard the story. He's going over, and why do I think they don't know how to use a camera? Because my lens is distorted. I'm seeing a disability. I'm seeing someone from a developing country. I'm seeing someone who doesn't speak English. Of course they don't know how to use a camera. Of course they're making a stupid mistake. Of course they're wasting all their film. Isn't it nice for me to go over and help them turn the camera around so they don't make such a stupid mistake, right? All wrong. Every assumption in that cognitive sequence of judgment was wrong. The point here is very simple. If you only remember one thing from today, I hope it's this. We often get each other wrong. Not just Republicans and Democrats, not just black or white, gay or straight, or rich or poor, or Utahns or everybody else. We often get each other wrong at the kitchen table. We often get our brothers and sisters wrong. We often judge books by their cover. That's why people spend so much time trying to design good covers. Because we know people will walk down the bookstore aisle and judge, no, I don't want that, no, I don't want that, no, I don't. Oh, that one, that's a good, let me pull this one out. So we're trying to get the natural instinct we have to misjudge each other work in the favor of a sale. But in our country today, getting each other wrong is destroying the country. That's our premise. It's destroying our country because we have normalized a particular lens filter. Those of you photographers, forgive me if this isn't right, but it's almost as though we have a filter on our lens that says, anybody that's different from me, I'm going to hate and dehumanize and treat with contempt. And the premise here is that we've developed a cultural addiction to contempt. And it's a big business. And if you feel it, it's partly because someone wants you to feel it. We call it Arthur Brooks calls it, also a University of Utah impact scholar, calls it the outrage industrial complex. It's a nested cycle that links the algorithm, partisan news, and politics, political races, all nested in an informal network that mutually supports each other. The algorithm amplifies contempt. You get more of it. The more you watch, the more you get, because it's addictive. The more you watch, the more you get. Politicians are incentivized to give you more of it so that they can raise money and get power and get fame. So the more you become trapped by the algorithm, the more the politician gives you more of it. And the more the politician gives you more of it, the more the politician gets on a partisan news channel that gets good ratings, because that politician who's incensed by the contempt that that politician sees now gets airtime, gets famous, raises money, gets ratings, gets clicks. Beautiful little ecosystem that's bent on destroying the country, honestly. And it's a big business. So if you're feeling right now super furious, not about a particular issue or policy, but about a person or people or group, you're trapped in the outrage industrial complex. I'm gonna take a gamble and say, you're not thinking for yourself. You're thinking based on your feed. Now, if you're against the wall or for the wall, that's one thing. But if your argument for or against the wall is full of hatred and anger and hostility and contempt and dehumanization of people who don't agree with you, you're getting your information from this web of sources. Contempt is so damaging, not just to our politics, but to our personal relationships. Is anybody here, I don't know if you're willing to share it, I am, willing to say that contempt is actually tearing families apart. The psychologists John Gottman and Julie Gottman have noted that contempt is one of the most difficult emotions to manage in a relationship. It almost always spells divorce or separation. So when the culture amplifies it, guess what happens? Families fall apart. Guess what happens? People get discouraged about the future, because what future do we have if those people are in charge? What future do we have if they're around? This place isn't safe for any of us. My house isn't safe. My spouse is treating me with contempt because she or he watches this and then screams at me about it and then yells at everybody else, and they come up back with these irrational positions, and I can't stand them anymore. Right? So this outrage industrial complex is not an academic thing. Here's data you will have seen 100 times. This is pre, by the way, the last election. All this data, I believe. I don't think any of this we've updated. The YouGov is February of this year. A third of us have ended a relationship in our families. Single digits among us think the country's doing well, thinks that we're actually getting problems solved. And most of us think the country is hopelessly divided. This is a recipe not for the destruction of a country by an outside force, but for self-destruction. Imagine if this were the data in your house. What's the chance your family's going to make it? Imagine if this is the data. I said to somebody, imagine telling a CEO, I want you to launch a new product. I want you to put everything you've got into it, and I want to make sure half of the company tries to destroy the product launch. CEO is going to go, what are you talking about? If we're going to do a new product launch, we need everybody to work on it together. Imagine telling a general, I want you to risk the lives of your army to take this position. And I want you to make sure that half of the army tries to stop you from being successful. Sure, it would be laughed at, right? It wouldn't even make Saturday Night Live. It's so stupid. That's what we're dealing with right now. Another way of looking at this is what Richard Edelman calls the trust collapse. He paints it now as a highly aggrieved world. It is no longer business as usual. This is, by the way, polling from 28 countries, not just from the United States. Distrust in institutions has skyrocketed. 40% of people in these countries believe in hostile activism, believe in hateful action. 20%, 1 in 5 of us, so if we were representative of this room, about 7 of us harbor the idea that I may need to be violent to advance my cause. That would make us representative. So imagine if this front row here were all people armed to figure out what to do to solve the problems at the university. And they all were saying, I might use them. Okay, so this is the collapse, in his words, of trust. What happens in the collapse of trust is you get things that people start to say it's a zero-sum game. So what you start to believe is if you're an engineer, the only way I'm going to be successful as an engineer is if other people in my class don't succeed. I'm in an us against them world. A war of all against all, Hobbes called it. So that creates that zero mindset. 53% of people that have high grievance believe they're living in a zero-sum world. That's, again, a recipe for disaster. So what's the opposite here? We're going to shift quickly to the brighter side of this ledger. The author and social psychologist or student of political science, Donna Hicks, writes that if indignity, if contempt tears us apart, dignity is what can put us back together. So take yourself back to your family, your major, whatever it is. Our premise here today is that treating people with dignity when you disagree is the single most powerful way of disarming the outrage industrial complex, changing the lens that we talked about at the beginning, and allowing us to see each other with dignity even when we disagree. So the premise here is not that disagreement is the problem. I'll just use, again, a cavalier example. If you want to build a wall and if you want no wall, those are not problems. Differences are not the problem in a democracy. They're actually the solution. Having 35 opinions in this room is not a problem. Figuring out how to respect different opinions, that's what democracy is supposed to do. That's dignity. That's me saying, I want a wall, you want no borders. Let me listen to you and figure out a way to understand you, even as I oppose your point of view, or vice versa, right? So that's being able to treat someone with dignity when contempt has pulled us apart. Donna points out, along with our survival instincts, our longing for human dignity is the most powerful force motivating our behavior. Little kid, 3 years old, what does he or she want from mom or dad or grandparents? They want to be seen, they want to be valuable, they want to be important. They want to know they matter. That's dignity, right? What does someone want when they start a new job? They just want to, they're a newbie, they're scared, they're anxious. They just want to make sure they're going to be treated well, it's going to be safe. Someone's going to support me. Someone's going to carry me along. What do you? So we believe that this question, now you can look at your cards, of whether we treat each other in alignment with the national norm of contempt, or if we treat each other with the countercultural norm of dignity. We think this is at the center of the country, of the country's challenge. And so we built something that would get us out of the conceptual. Because politicians said to us when we talked, that's fine, that's great. Emmanuel Cleaver said, oh, this is a terrific idea. Nobody wins based on dignity. CEOs would say, you got to be a hard ass to drive performance in our company. Nobody's going to win based on this. So no one's ever giving us any credit for it. So we said, let's take that on. Let's actually try to create a score so we could give you some credit when you use dignity and challenge you to do better when you use contempt. But not do it based on, I'm a Democrat, you're a Republican, or I'm a Republican, you're a Democrat, but based on an objective, socially normed and validated score. A score that if the most left-wing person scored it or the most right-wing person scored the text, they would score it the same. So not a politically biased point of view about what our politicians are doing, but an objective score. So at the bottom of the scale from 4 down, you can look at this on your scorecards, you see increasing levels of contempt. A 4 would say something like, well, you know, your point of view is good. It's really badly misguided, and everybody that is part of your team is obviously completely uninformed about this. That's a 4. A 3 would go a little further. A 3 would go, you know, the people that believe as you do, you know, it's really, we can't talk about this anymore. It's us or you. We got to go, sorry, we got to oppose you. Let's just take it to the polls. Because at this point, we're good, you're bad. We got to beat you. A 2, now I want you to actually maybe try to feel this. A 2 drops a little lower. Don't bring that around here. That's evil. That's dangerous. That idea, that's going to ruin the country. That's, you know what? That's disgusting me when you talk that way. That's a 2. That's just north from a social psychology point of view of, you got to go. There's not room for both of us here. I'm going to use violence because your point of view is too dangerous. We no longer can tolerate it. You're not even human. Why bother letting you live? That's the language of war. We've exhausted every potential solution to a problem. The only solution left to us is to kill you. The higher end, much more fun, 5 and up. 5 will be a kind of an equal time person. Okay, you want the open borders, state your piece. And then let me have my time. You know, you have a right to be here. Every opinion matters on this campus, so go ahead, say what you got to say. A 6 will go a little higher. You know what? You want open borders, and I bet there's something. Don't we both share a desire for safety in the country? Maybe there's a way we can. Do you want safety, right? Yeah, I want safety. Let's find a way to see if there's something we share. A 7, that's a 6. A 7 will go a little higher. You know what, I've been thinking a lot about this. I have strong convictions, but I want to know where you're coming from. I might have this wrong. You know what? I just want to keep an open mind because I know you come from a completely different place than I do, and I'm not understanding what you're talking about, but I'm going to listen to you even on the areas where we disagree most deeply. And an 8 is that space. Tammy says she sometimes lives there. I agree that it's sometimes. You see, that was, what was that? That was a 4? That was a 4, yeah. So I just did a 4 on Tammy Piper, my colleague. So that's just an example of how this dignity index works. The first thing you'll find about it, an 8 is a person who sees dignity no matter what. You see someone on death row who's done horrible things, they should be treated with dignity. You see someone on the opposite end of the political spectrum as you, they should be treated with dignity. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to say the person on death row should walk free or whatever your position might be. But you will say that no matter what, even in the face of violence and suffering, the person should be treated with dignity. So here's the point. This is a very simple, of all the lessons anybody will have heard in a higher education institution, I'm going to venture that this is the easiest to learn. Because it's only asking it's only one lesson. The lesson is, look at how you treat someone when you disagree. That's it. We have fairly high confidence that second graders can learn this, which makes it a little bit more difficult for college-age kids and very difficult for adults, but not conceptually complex. All we're asking people to do is be aware of how they characterize someone when they disagree. That's it. You say, well, there's other things. We got to worry about the wall. We got to worry about taxes. Or we got to worry about diplomacy. Or we got to worry about this or that. That's true. This is a distillation of only one thing. How do we treat each other when we disagree? So let's do a quick scoring practice here. I'm picking on you throughout this whole thing. Do you want to read Simone Biles' quote? Could you read it out?
Please. I think it's all about sportsmanship, and we don't care whether we win or lose. We're always going to keep a good face and support our competitors because they've worked just as hard as we have for them. You have to give them their flowers, and that's exactly what me and Jordan were doing.
This is Simone Biles at the Paris Olympics on the Olympic stand when she and her fellow competitor bowed to the #1 gymnast from Brazil who won the gold medal. How do you score it? Take a stab at it. You can look at your scorecard. What do you think this is? Where do you think this lands? 8. Nice. What else? What else do we have? 7. 6. So we'd score this a 6. Because but what Simone Biles is saying, we see this as we have something in common. We share a love of sportsmanship. She's worked, I've worked. We know what it means to try hard. And so what she's saying is, even though I wish I'd beaten her, which doesn't change in this framing, I have enormous respect for the things we share in common. So we classify that as a 6. Let's look at this one. A new reader over on this side of the room. Alaska Canadian Alcan, do you mind?
Yeah, I can do that. Okay, so Taylor Swift is a psycho. She's the cancer of the music industry. Seriously, never seen such a fame-hungry and stats-obsessed artist in my life.
What do you think? Score it. 2. Go ahead. Anybody else? 3. You could score this either a 2 or a 3, we think. It's clearly an attack on Taylor Swift, so it's, in my view, at least a 3 on the way down. A 2 is she's evil. Feels a little borderline, not quite evil. Psycho, not very nice, that's for sure. Fame hungry. So the psycho word is, and the cancer is what lead it a little lower down the scale. But you could end up with either one of these. One last one from Mahatma Gandhi. Who wants to be the happy reader? Hira, will you read?
Yeah. Okay, since I claim to be a simple individual, liable to err like any other fellow mortal, I own, however, that I have humility enough to confess my errors and to retrace my steps. It is unwise to be too sure of one's own wisdom. It is healthy to be reminded that the strongest might weaken and the wisest might err. Mahatma Gandhi.
Beautiful. Take a look at your scorecards. What do you say? 7. Yeah. This is a pretty textbook 7. Anybody want to say why? Tom, why is this such a perfect 7?
What's distinctive about 7 is this is where the capacity for self-criticism comes in.
Yeah.
And just as a slight digression, look at the United States Constitution if you want to see a genius document that embeds self-criticism in the way we run the country. But when you can see humility, when you can see curiosity, that's a mark that you've entered into 7, into what we sometimes say a real spiritual domain.
Yeah, beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, do you want to do one quick? We'll do one quick clip because we want to get to some calls to action here. So we're going to do anybody here seen Ted Lasso? Yeah, okay, all right. So I'm not going to do the background on Ted Lasso. Here's a clip when Nate, who has left the team, sees on social media that Ted has taken the team for practice, for team building practice, down into the London Underground, actually into the sewer. And this is the scene.
Shelley, would you like to comment on the new picture of AFC Richmond that's just showed up online? What picture?
I think I know where the team's gone.
Yeah, well, it makes sense to me. Probably have to train in a sewer because their coach is so shitty.
Have to train in the sewer because the coach is so... We don't say anything like that in Utah. They probably have to train in the sewer because their coach is this way. What do you think? Score it. Take a stab. There's a lot of shy people in this room. 4? Okay. We'd score. Did I see fingers somewhere else? Cheater. We'll actually, I forgot to put the scores here. We're going to come back to this, so hold that. This is Ted Lasso being asked after the press conference his reaction, okay?
Any response to the comments made earlier today by your former assistant coach, Nathan Shelley?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I thought it was hilarious. I mean, he came and got us, didn't he? No doubt about that. Hey, but that's Nate the Great for you. You know, he's the same way on the pitch. You know, he'll find the tiniest little weakness in a team and just want to attack that. Yeah. I mean, he's a junkyard dog, man. And smart. They're real lucky to have him over there at West Ham. I wish him the best of luck.
So here's the quote. Madeline, you want to read the quote? We'll just do it one more time, just for fun. Yeah.
I thought it was hilarious, but that's Nate the Great for you. He's the same way on the pitch. I mean, he's a junkyard dog, man. Smart. They were lucky to have him over there at West Ham. I wish him the best of luck.
What do you think? Take a look at your scoring guide. What do you think? Well, suffice to say, there's difference of opinion on this one. Tammy, do you want to go first?
Sure. I can make a case for 2 or 3 scores. I'm going to make a case for a 6 to start out with. And it's like similar to the Simone Biles quote. It's like, you know, he's great. We both are coaches. I see what he does, enjoy what I enjoy, you know, kind of the work I do. I see the good in what he's doing. They're lucky to have it.
Yeah.
That could be a 6.
Tom, make the case for an 8.
I think 8 is often just a degree of difficulty. How hard is it in that situation when someone delivers a direct insult to you and you respond with grace and dignity? That's an 8. That's a direct love your enemy's response.
Have you, just call to mind, has there been a moment where someone really insulted you and you returned dignity and grace? It's actually, I mean, I'm not embarrassed to say this because I'm learning this like just everybody else. It's hard to remember. It's hard for me to find, except for if you consider parenting teenagers. Then it's common. But in other situations, it's tough. This is a high bar. So we would have scored Nate about a 3, and Ted, I think the consensus would be a 7, although Tom makes a good case for an 8 and Tammy for a 6. Here's the message that we're trying to get across. There's 2 big lessons here from the Dignity Index. When we use contempt to describe other people, it's hard to see it. Once we see it, it's a little harder to use it. When you say, I hate those people, fill in the blank, the other political party, or I hate those people who live in such and such, or I hate those people who believe such and such, you don't hear yourself as being hateful. I'm going to give you a challenge. I'm guessing what you're hearing is those people are so horrible. But once you hear that you're using hateful language, you're like, ooh, maybe I could do this differently. So the Dignity Index has, amongst many important features, it allows us to see contempt and therefore much less likely to use it. Now, this is important because recent data shows, when people ask me, what's the new patriotism? The new patriotism will be the people who understand this sequence, that people are more interested in connecting across lines of difference than we realize. 70% of Americans, I'm going to go quickly now because we don't have too much time, 70% of Americans want to connect across political, racial, socioeconomic status, and religious difference. Now, if you're a Democrat listening to a Democratic echo chamber or a Republican listening to a Republican, you think those people over there don't want anything to do with you and you don't want anything to do with them. That's because you've had your vision distorted. They will do this, Americans will do this if they think other people are doing it. So we're all a little bit copycats. And when we see no one doing it, we're scared because we don't have the confidence it'll go well. Let's just look at some of this data because maybe it'll surprise you. 7 in 10 of us feel that we not only we have a responsibility as citizens to connect with people from different backgrounds. I'm guessing that number is even higher on a college campus. Whether or not you have the confidence to do it is not the same thing as whether you want to do it. Most of us would like to make the situation better. That's what this data is telling us. When asked about why we don't do it, a quarter of us say the reason is we don't have an opportunity. We're scared. We don't see other people doing it. I belong to the Rotary Club. I don't know people in that other club. I belong to the LDS community. I don't know people in the Baptist community. I am a young Republicans. I don't know where those Democrats, I mean, I've seen them, but I don't know them. I don't have any opportunity to listen, work, and collaborate with them. And we have no goals in common. That's the common message. I'm going to skip this. So our challenge to you, all of you that are here, gracious, is not just to think about how to score, but how to develop the skills to get better. On the back of your cards, we don't have time to go through this, you see a short primer on skills to use next time you're in a disagreement. Next time someone does, whether it's open borders or a big wall, or whether it's I'm tired of eating chicken for dinner, I want steak, or whether it's I want to go to Chinese versus Italian, we've gone to Chinese every night because you like it and I can't stand it. Whatever the disagreement is, here are skills you can use to manage your own anger or fear or hostility or misunderstanding and move up the dignity index. Here's one you can hopefully remember. Probably the most important one. Does anyone remember in second grade their teacher teaching them to turtle? Turtle, one shoulder. You can all do this, it's not painful. Just put your hands on your shoulders and pretend you're dropping into your shell and take a deep breath. And imagine yourself, this is sophisticated for us, but it's easy for second graders. It allows you to self-regulate. It's almost the most important step in reducing stress and allowing you to speak from a place of more gathered or more collected consciousness. Now, in addition to self-regulation, the second most complex skill, again, second graders can learn this, even 4-year-olds, you'll see one, is self-awareness. How many of us are aware of how we treat each other, what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are? Here's a little, oh, we don't have that one, so you don't get to see it. Oh, it's coming up. So self-awareness is almost like being able to see, hold up a mirror to yourself, to know what you're good at and what you're not good at, to know that you're getting agitated, that it's not the other person's fault, that it's something you can control. We call this the mirror effect. The dignity index helps people hold up a mirror, not just to Mitt Romney or Joe Biden or Donald Trump, but to yourself, because you get to see how you're scoring. Here's my 4-year-old who shows you a little bit about how the mirror effect becomes quite sophisticated.
Are you smart? Yeah. Are you strong?
Yeah.
Are you brave?
Yeah.
Are you pretty?
Yeah.
Are you kind?
Not really.
That's genius. List your qualities, honestly. Know where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are. Be willing to admit your weaknesses. You don't have to admit them to me. Admit them to yourself, so that you can work with them and so you can share them with other people, so you can ask for help in strengthening them. Self-awareness, not just self-regulation, is a key to enhancing this. This is my favorite quote about people that don't have it. It was a couple of months ago at a presentation. A woman comes up, I don't know what to tell you. I hate hateful people. Right? So this is the opposite of the mirror effect. This is a person who cannot see that they have become what they loathe. Many of us have become what we loathe. Here's some skills you can use in the future if you want to try some of these. When in a dispute, tell me more. We found that to be one of the best questions you can ever ask. Just tell me more. What am I not understanding? What outcomes are you? I'm struggling here. What outcomes by having a big wall? What outcomes are you trying to achieve? What's your vision? What's your deepest hope? What's like? Don't tell me what you voted for. Tell me what you really want out of life. These are questions. We're going to build a kind of a big encyclopedia of these. Prompt questions that help you move. If you're a 2, up to 3. Maybe you move from 3 up to 4 and up to 5. Just questions that will help you not compromise your principles, but understand better how to take them to the next level. Here's some of we have several members in this picture in the room today. This was our inaugural Students for Dignity. We want to strengthen this on campus of the University of Utah. So thinking about Students for Dignity, activities that can take place here on campus. We'd love interest from from students for strengthening this work. This is kind of a pathway to recruiting and building meetings and activities. But here's the final point of the presentation. We're trying to build the dignity movement not because we think it's nice or because we think it's kind or because we think it's religiously guided or because we think it's spiritually profound, but because we think the future of the country is at stake. So we're not here discussing or describing a pitch of a product. We're here discussing and describing an invitation to join a movement. And it's our conviction, based on everything we've seen and watched, that this movement is essential to getting us out of the mess we're in, where our families are falling apart and our politics is destructive and the risk of violence is all around us. So, we put things up here like start a TikTok channel. Sounds like a cavalier response to a national crisis. It's not. It's not. Building a movement means marshaling the excitement and energy and support of more and more people, one by one, who start to create what we think of as a subculture. Let's worry a little bit less. I'm not saying compromise your politics, but let's worry a little bit less about trying to fire a torpedo at our national politics and a little bit more about building a counterculture that people can go over and they look at and they go, look at those people. Look how they do it. Sound like scripture, right? I noticed them, those people of the way. They were recognizable by the way they treated each other. That's what people said in the early days of Christianity. And I'm sure of other great religions as well. Something people saw that was different. Not an assault on the powers that be, but a different way of being. So we need help. That's my last point. We really need help. We need to create this virtuous cycle where people have an experience of connection. They develop greater interest in connection. It's safe to connect. It's fruitful. People learn from connection. We have a country starving for connection. But we can only do it little bits, small pieces at a time, in our view. So check out the website. Join us. Sign up for the newsletter. You could even, I don't know if this is true, you could even give $1 if you're really motivated. That's our new call to action. Give $1 to unite to support this work. I know everybody's tight in college and in academic circles, but maybe if you just give $1, it will remind you that this is actually something you want to join and be a part of, not just something you listen to on a Wednesday afternoon. Thank you. So we have 3 minutes.
I think we have time for about one or two quick questions.
Great.
So.
Picked on you so much, you're going to pick on me, right?
Yeah. How would you say that political satire, in particular, plays into the Dignity Index and how things move?
Yeah, so the Dignity Index at this point can't capture all the nuance of tone of voice or context or satire or humor, well-intentioned humor versus maliciously intentioned humor. We can capture some of it by looking at the setting. So, for instance, that Ted Lasso clip, we've shown that to people who have never seen the show, and they grade Ted much more lowly than people who have seen it. People who have seen it understand the character, and they know he's using a lot of dignity, right? People who haven't seen it say, I think he's being snarky. So we don't have all the ways of just in the abstract looking at words on the page and being able to pick up satire or other kinds of things. But we can, when we have the full picture, be pretty accurate, pretty reliable, and pretty valid. The scores hold up over time and over multiple settings. So, but what we can do with satire and humor, like if you make fun of me right now, I can say, are you? Am I understanding you that this was funny, or are you trying to insult me. Like, I just want to understand. So, humor can sometimes be wonderful. Like, everybody loves to laugh. But sometimes it's cutting, right? So at least the Dignity Index gives us a tool to start to ask those questions and figure out which is going on. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yes?
Thank you so much. I really thought this was a fascinating talk.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed it. Something that was on my mind with it was this idea of the paradox of tolerance, where if you tolerate those that are intolerant, it's going to lead to a dominant culture of intolerance. And I wondered kind of if you think there's a connection here, or there's a similar paradox with dignity, where if you treat those that seek to dehumanize with dignity, that you're gonna maybe lead to some culture where treating people without dignity is the dominant idea. I wonder if there's any rare cases where you think maybe contempt is a warranted reply. I'm curious about your thoughts there.
Fascinating question. I heard two questions. The first is there a risk with dignity that you actually empower people who are oppressive or indifferent? The second is, let me stay with the first, then I'll come to the second. Our hope is that by treating people with dignity, we actually make it more difficult for contempt to flourish. We're actually exposing contempt as a way of disempowering it. What we are not doing, and what we want to be very clear on, sometimes we have to figure out how to say this better maybe in the future. What we're not doing is telling people to compromise with evil, or compromise their principles, or compromise. The death row example might be important here. I would say a person who's committed capital crimes and created great harm should be in prison for life. I would say for life. That's my view. I think they should also be treated with dignity, but I don't think that should be tolerated. Someone comes in and wantonly takes the life of other people. I think that person needs to pay a price for that kind of behavior. So the reason that the dignity message, I think, helps us is that it allows me to disentangle you, the criminal, the person who's committed a crime, from the crimes. The crimes are horrific. You are not. You deserve dignity. But the crimes you've committed and those crimes are so horrific that you deserve to spend the rest of your life in prison, never again walking free. So when you collapse contempt with a disagreement, a lot of times what you get is, I don't agree with that position you have on the wall because you're such a jerk. You're an idiot. Now, what I've now done is I've complicated my argument about the wall, which I may find oppressive or unjust or criminal even, with my attack on you. And what I've incited in you is a counterattack. So I've let actually the injustice slide. So our hope is that by treating people with dignity, you can reveal the injustice or the oppression or the contempt and attack it instead of the person. So in a counterintuitive way, we hope leads to higher degrees of accountability rather than centrism. And the second point I was just going to make, I guess I already made, is that there's nothing in this that suggests you should compromise your principles or compromise your hopes or dreams for a more just or joyful or dignified future. We are not arguing that everybody should be nice. Treating people with dignity, like Dr. King, if you read a letter from Birmingham City Jail, you don't hear him being nice to the pastors he's writing to. He's rough. I am asking you, why are you behaving with hypocrisy? Why are you preaching this gospel and allowing this message to continue to oppress people? Why are you allowing age after age, year after year, the kind of intolerance that you're allowing? But he doesn't ever attack them. He doesn't ever say, you are the devil. You're a horrible person. You're a criminal. You're a jerk. And you can look at our contemporary political discourse, just use the words. He never uses any of them. And as a result, he becomes the icon in some ways of how to change a culture. Not by loosening accountability or tolerating injustice, but by separating treating people with dignity and nonviolence from injustice. I hope that helps.
So we are unfortunately out of time, but
yes.
everyone please thank our guest again. Join me in
thank you.